Hello, everyone, and welcome to SUGTalks, the official podcast of the UK and Ireland SAP User Group, a not-for-profit membership organisation designed to help you get the very best out of your SAP investments. Our focus is bringing the whole SAP community together so our members can learn, network, and collaborate to improve their organisation and make their job easier, providing an independent channel through which to influence SAP. I'm Craig Dale, your host and Chief Executive of the User Group. And together with our special guests, we will take a deep dive into topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Today, we're moving on to the second part of our discussion around some of the effects of the COVID-19 virus and how you can work effectively from home and obtain and maintain a positive mindset through a global pandemic. If you've not listened to the first part, I recommend you listen to that before continuing your journey with us in this episode. And I'm delighted to be joined once more by Simon Nichols, founder and Wellbeing Director of Thrive, Paul Cooper, Head of IS at Burton's Biscuit Company and Chair of the UK and Ireland SAP User Group, and Lindsey Rowe, Head of People and Programmes Office at SAP UK and Ireland. Welcome again to you all. And for the first part, we've looked at the challenges around working through the pandemic. And now we would like to move on to more positive notes. And I understand from Simon that positivity increases productivity by 33%, a scientific fact. So, starting with you, Lindsey, you touched on some of the positive aspects in our earlier episode. And what are some of those aspects that you have found through the pandemic?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely positives, and when I look at some of the things, I think some examples for us. So one of the things that I guess we weren't expecting was the fact that we would be onboarding nearly 60 interns
Wow.
virtually. Right. So when we'd got all their job offers out by February, they'd be joining us in July, usual kind of business as usual activity. And then when the pandemic hit, we're thinking, okay, well, that's July, so that's fine. And then it became really clear really quickly. So that was a huge positive for us. And actually seeing how those students reacted. I mean, starting your
Yeah.
first job remotely from your
Wow.
bedroom, and you've normally been at uni and away from parents and stuff, and then you're like back home and they're kind of nagging you in the corner. That for us has been such a highlight this year. And if anything, onboarding them virtually for us has made us realize actually there's some real benefits to doing that. You don't have all
Mm,
of the kind of social impacts that you have when you first join, because it's almost like a freshers week coming into a workplace because they're all students, they're all joining the company at the same time. So it's allowed them to learn at their own pace. Be able to reflect a lot more than they normally would because many of them will live together when they come into our business. So, they're almost not getting that gap when they come up, they'll come in, do their job, get in the cars together, go back and live with each other. I mean, in itself is actually quite stressful. So we've seen a
yeah.
big change there. But I think just in general, not just an SAP thing, I think people have started to be a bit more kind of kind and a bit more thoughtful around things and their behaviors and their use of language and all of
Mm,
these types of things. I mean, SAP for a long time now, from a purpose perspective, have looked at how can we make sure that social enterprises are successful and small businesses and these sorts of areas. One thing I decided to do at the start was thinking, I'm saving so much money in commuting. The world will be happy. I'm not sitting on the M25 and carbon emissions every day anymore. I used to
mhm,
think I hated my commute. I do miss it a bit. Um,
mm,
but the starting to think about how much money you're saving. Now, I've been putting that into like different charities and small businesses, and it's made
mm,
me sort of seek out different companies I'd never thought of because at first it was quite easy, and then I'm like, oh, actually, this is still going. I've made a commitment. I have to keep doing it. But it just got people thinking a bit differently. Now, you don't need to do something like that. But again, think about your commute cost, like the pure cost, not just your time. Could you be putting that to, um, a holiday when we are allowed back out, or that thing you wanted doing in the house? I think that again, it's something to look forward to. So you're thinking, you would have been spending that on your train tickets or your petrol or whatever. So that for me has certainly been able to spread some positivity and talking about things. I mean, you'll always have, I'm sure, people that follow me on LinkedIn, there's aspects they're probably rolling their eyes like, oh, what on earth are you going on about now? But I had a few people saying, "Oh, it just made me feel better." I mean, the one thing that I did right at the start was admit my love of hula hooping, and I decided to blur the social media lines from Facebook and Instagram, and I put it out on LinkedIn. And actually, people then just go, "Oh, actually, everyone's just real when they're doing that thing, and they know what your living room looks like and what your garden's like, and whatever." And the hula hooping for me has been the thing that's kept my mood up. And when it does drop, you can't keep up a level of positivity all the time. But sometimes I think, "Oh, this is lower than even I want to deal with." Put the music on, do that for like 30 minutes, and then my husband's like, "That was an hour. You said you wanted a living room for 30 minutes." But it makes you feel so good. So I think for me, the positivities really come from looking at different ways of doing stuff and being way more open about who you are as a person is actually making the teams and people feel this isn't a corporate thing. We're all trying to get through this. I sort of said in series or episode 1 is this is a human thing. It's not a work thing. It's not a KPI thing. This is purely we're all humans trying to figure this one out.
It's so true, so true. And there's some great insights there. And I must admit, though, initially when you were talking about virtually onboarding interns, I had an image of holograms and chatbots, but they are real people. We
I
are
think
bringing
so.
real people.
I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, I've met a couple of them. There's some definite real ones, but um, I couldn't actually stand up in court and say they are definitely real. Because technology's moving on all the time. But it's been great, and they've been across the whole of the UK, which has been nice. So actually, I know we've got one in Exeter, we've got them up in Newcastle. They're literally across the whole of the UK, whereas
Wow.
normally they're all having to live in Feltham, round the corner from the
Yeah.
office.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And that outside element as well. You talk about seeing people's gardens, the hula hooping. I must admit, on the hula hooping side, barbecue beef's my favourite. But I really do. Getting out, walking, things like that. Excellent, excellent. And Simon, what I suppose kind of positive strategies can you share with us?
Yeah, I think what's fantastic that Lindsay just said is number one, she shares herself. And I think that's so true. When we're genuine, when we're honest, when we're actually showing our real self, which a lot of senior execs struggle with because they have to be strong and they have to be commanding of their teams and their forces. So we've now seen, I guess, that vulnerability of our senior management, which is fantastic. And one thing that Lindsay said, which I really must pick up on, is I can't stay positive all the time. We have emotions for a reason. We feel happy for a reason. Dopamine gets released from our chemical our hormones. Serotonin gets released from our stomach. It makes us feel good. But like anything, too much of a good thing causes an imbalance. So if anyone remembers Timmy Mallet from Wackaday back in the 80s, you cannot keep that level of happiness up. So when we have an emotion, whether that be angry, sad, frustrated, excited, happy, our body's being sent that information so we can change it. So even when we're feeling the most happy we can be, at some stage we're going to have to feel a little bit less happy, just because our body wants us to feel that way, because we want to be actually on an even keel. We want to be balanced. And when we start to think about mental health, what we're seeing is an imbalance. We're seeing an overabundance or a lack of chemicals and hormones being released into the body. So when we start to look at how we can be positive, I think Lindsay's really summed it up, is just be genuine, be yourself, show your human side to everybody. And I posted on LinkedIn this morning, and Lindsay and I possibly worked out earlier. We may have met each other in the past, but I only linked into to Lindsay just recently, so I need to go back and see the hula hooping. But one of the things that I put up this morning was uh, about just being kind, and I think you mentioned that, which is just be kind to people. And what we saw coming out from when we did our workshops during the summer is two things, and I'll pass over to Paul. The first one was actually we started to see anxiety reduction in people already suffering from anxiety. 69% of anxiety sufferers in anxiety.co.uk reported a huge spike in their already anxiety, because they belong to that belong to that society, of 69%. And what we saw towards the end of lockdown was that anxiety actually reduced, because for a lot of people, going into the office was a source of their anxiety. So being able to work from home was actually fantastic. The second one I'd like to do, and I'm linking this back around to SAP again, is what it's actually done for businesses is it's sped up digital transformation. I'd love to see some statistics that are going to come out, because hold on, and Paul might do this as head of IS. I'm sorry, Dave, you can't work from home because of AB. Oh, actually, Dave needs to work from home. Right, let's get Dave set up so that he can work from home. So what you've got is you've got people now accessing that ability to do something different as well. So I think that for me, those are the two positives.
Yeah, I think there's been lots of polls, hasn't there, especially out in the Twitterverse, so to speak, around what has helped your move and your digital transformation. Is it your CTO, your CEO, or COVID-19? And it has had that impact. As I've talked to some of our members, and I think one of our public sector members said they have changed culturally over a period of 2 weeks, which ordinarily would have taken them 2 years, because they had to. And that drive, that move, and hopefully it'll all bear out positively as we go forward. And Paul, what positive aspects have you seen through working remotely and from home?
I think one of the nice things has been able to get people access to things that they perhaps wouldn't have been able to do or see before. So, for example, at our head office, they do lunch and learn, once a month, one of the functions, or someone will go in and talk about something. But it's traditionally been limited to the population that happened to be in the office that day.
Okay.
What we've been able to do with this is all of a sudden we wanted to carry on doing it. So, it migrates to a Teams call. Well, actually, that Teams call doesn't just need to be the population in head office, and therefore, the invite gets distributed wider. And there's been some really good sessions that you wouldn't necessarily normally get access to that sort of information if you're working at one of the bakeries, or understand what a particular team does spend all their time doing. So that has been a positive for me, is being able to get people access to that. I'm convinced we have more people attending our monthly business brief that our MD does, the first Tuesday or second Tuesday of the month. We've got more people accessing that. So I think there's a greater understanding and knowledge of, what's happening to the business. And then I think, one of the things that we did in that first 3 months is we donated an awful lot of biscuits out into the community, whether that be through food banks or employees being empowered to go and give some, shortbread to, their local pharmacy or their doctor's surgery or the fire station. And actually that's had a real positive impact on people in the business. And, if I think about one of the guys at the site that I'm normally based at in Blackpool, he ended up being known as Bernie the Biscuit King because he was giving away so much. And the local paper featured him. That was massively positive for both the side, but also for him feeling that he'd given something back. So, a range of things for me have kind of given that sort of pride and positivity in both the individuals that I work with, but also what the business has allowed to happen and facilitated. So those would be key things for me.
And I think as well on that giving back piece there, Paul, it's interesting how that does make people really feel, knowing that the company's doing something more than, the bottom line and the profits and all of the areas. We certainly saw that within SAP. Some of the kind of like bigger global initiatives, but we were able to make it local. When Simon, you were talking in episode 1 about homeschooling. So
Yeah.
we've been working with schools through the co-op for a while now. But when they said, right, everyone, kids have got to learn from home, we're like, okay, well, the teachers will just sort that. But they reached out to us and said, the challenge is these children don't have any access to tech. So we're making this assumption, right, you'll do your Zoom classes. These children don't
Yeah.
have
No.
equipment. They don't have any access to this. The parents don't even, some of them, there's not even a mobile phone that they could try and maybe get online.
Yeah.
So a number of organisations, but SAP being one of them, were able to get them the equipment. And they just sent us a video this week, and I'll have to send it to you guys. It made me cry. Just knowing that actually it was real kids in a real school in the UK have got a laptop, so they're not feeling, because suddenly you might not know if someone's got a laptop at home. You can come to school, you're all in the same uniform. You don't necessarily see those vulnerabilities, but then suddenly, oh, that kid can't come on to the Zoom classes because they don't have anything at home. It
Yeah.
really was a real wake-up call to us to say, it doesn't matter if they change the curriculum to being online, not everyone has that access. So it made, again, to your point, Paul, employees think, actually, I'm so glad we were able to do that.
And it's been, for me, such a positive aspect of all of it, seeing organizations and also individuals really stepping up and stepping out and really doing positive things in their communities, be they global, be they local, and helping others. I mean, some of the aspects you've just touched on there, are absolutely fantastic. And an organization can say, look, as a strategy, we're going to do this, or forget about strategy, we're really going to help. But then
Yeah.
it's down to the individuals within that organization to take that forward and do something about it positively. And I think there's been great aspects, not just Joe Wicks doing his 9 a.m. fitness class on a morning in first lockdown, etc. But lots of people have just been doing so many positive things that sometimes we do lose that, we do forget about that. And I think it's great. And I think you mentioned earlier, Simon, about being yourself, and I think that authenticity is a very, very important trait that we need to be driving forward. Simon.
Just a very quick one, just a quote that sort of changed the way I thought about a lot of things, and I very rarely quote it, but I quoted it on my LinkedIn post this morning for the first time, and it's give without remembering and receive without forgetting. I think that is so important, because if you do something nice for a person every single day and you smile at someone, that might be the only smile they get. And if they go on and smile to someone and that person goes on to smile at someone, that pay it forward methodology is fantastic. But people don't forget that kindness. That child, one child in Lindsey's that SAP have helped in that school, could go on to become a doctor, a brain surgeon, just because they didn't have the access to the tech at a young age. We could have enabled someone that's going to save someone's life. And I think that is so important.
I think it was interesting, kind of shortly into lockdown, probably a month or 2 months in, first time round, lockdown 1.0, whatever it's called now. My thoughts went back to school. And I did a small post on LinkedIn about this, but my school motto, Nemo Sibi Nascitur, which is, I think there's kind of two translations. One is, no man is born unto himself alone, or no man is an island. And I wrote a little piece on LinkedIn to say, having seen kind of those sorts of things and seeing what my own team had done and some of the things I was seeing my colleagues doing, it really suddenly resonated back to something that, as a surly teenager at school, some Latin that's on the badge on your blazer doesn't really mean anything. But all of a sudden I was thinking, do you know what? Actually, that was a really powerful quote that was drilled into us.
So interesting. And one of the things, just going back to that, you're talking about, Simon, going out saying hello, and I got into a habit of walking, thinking about utilising that commute time and thinking, what, I'll keep walking on a morning. And as we've got into the dark mornings, saying hello and good morning to people. At the time I go walking about 6 a.m. wherever, there's only the odd dog walker out, and just getting a hello back or a smile back is just really positive. And some people they won't make eye contact, and I can imagine seeing me at that time in the dark. I can understand why, but hopefully one day they might say good morning back. But I will continue to say good morning, and maybe they'll think I'm a weirdo. I don't care. But
I'm one of those strange people that does smile to people on the tube to freak them out.
Ooh, a northerner.
Yeah, and at the moment, it's actually quite hard, whether you're on the tube or in a supermarket, where you feel you see something, you want to smile or kind of acknowledge someone, and you're covered up in your mask, and you can't.
But don't forget, Paul, that a smile affects our eyes, and a smile
true.
actually makes and you can make your eyes sparkle. And I think that's so important, because if you make eye contact with someone, even with a mask on, and your mask move, it will scrunch. I'm not advocating masks moving, because we're here to protect others. But you can, if you make your eyes sparkle and someone catches that glint, I think that's just as important.
Completely agree. And that's generally as well how you can understand somebody is genuinely smiling, because their eyes will smile back. And, we've talked about these things, and what I'd like to move on now, so we've touched on tech and lots of other things. And Lindsey, SAP, given away quite a few free tools over this period to help their customers. But they also, what tools do SAP have to help that remote working?
Yeah, so it was funny when I thought about, as you mentioned, we kind of given free access, but certainly at the start of this to technology, knowing that would have a huge impact. So we talked about like remote surveys and pulse checks. So over seven, I think it was. I mean, this is a stat I had from before. I know you like a stat, Simon, but it's probably been more ever since. But it was nearly 8,000 companies downloaded the Qualtrics kind of remote pulse survey to be able to get that quick response and quick insight. And it was really, how are you feeling today? Not like how do you feel about our strategies and this and what's your line manager like?
Yep.
Just that in the moment, are you feeling cloudy today? Are you feeling this? And just getting a kind of a vibe really. So we love the fact that the customers were able to just, and non-customers, like anyone could go and download that. When we then looked at it, from a real practical sense, it was things like opening up our Ariba network for sourcing. Because right at the start, it was just, panic buy of everything, face masks, the lot. So that was all, I guess, the really practical stuff. But actually, since then, we've seen huge innovation in our partners. Some of these apps already existed, but there's been huge innovation in terms of, so if you look at the kind of SAP App Store and the types of things there, looking at wellness, how that can factor into something like success factors, for example. I mean, I knew there was a few out there, but I was just again sort of kind of geeking out, having a look through the App Center. I was like, oh my God, these are awesome. I think obviously there's loads of great ones, but some of it was even about financial well-being, thinking about apps and technology around those sorts of things, because those will all have an impact to somebody's mental health as well. So, again, we're thinking, oh, we haven't had to furlough anybody and all of these things, but then you don't know what's going on in their home life. Is the other someone at home the main breadwinner and they've been impacted, or whatever it might be? So what I've seen from an app store, so really anybody that's kind of tuned in to take a look, it's not just what SAP is doing, but it's how people are innovating with the platforms and everything else. One of the things we saw as well internally, I think, don't know all of the technicalities of how they've built it, but certainly knowing using kind of cloud platform and everything, is that a success platform internally. So, we, with all these lovely things, SAP is obviously still a software company. We're still selling software. That's at the heart of what businesses are doing. But how do we actually celebrate success throughout and all the teams that are involved? Not just like our sales teams, but there's everyone has a part to play in SAP success. So they developed this app that is almost like a kind of, I guess, an internal, I guess, like a LinkedIn, providing like a social media aspect to it, but to share
Mm,
something great that someone did. So it might have been along the journey of a
yeah,
customer transformation or a great bit of innovation that was done. You can share that story. Your colleagues can comment, love it, like it, whatever it might be. And we've seen, again, just different people you wouldn't have known, because unless you're on a project team on that particular thing, how are you going to get insight? So I
yeah.
even in that app alone learnt so much. So I think for me, rather than it being a classic top level portfolio of cloud uh, options, it's actually the innovation that our partners and customers have been doing within the technologies that we've really seen driving this kind of wellness and kind of financial well-being pieces. So yeah, certainly, even just for interest, take a look in the App Center. It just suddenly gets you thinking, oh wow, people are really taking this stuff seriously.
Some great options there, and obviously, yeah, please do pop along to the App Store to have a look and see how your organisation can really help your team stay positive through all of this. And it's great that those tools are out there. And as you said, Lindsay, that innovation coming from the whole community as well, partners, customers, not just SAP, is excellent. What I'd maybe like to do now is just bring the conversation into a more personal note, and just to we talked about Lindsay's hula hooping and music in the living room, possibly a bit of dancing around in there as well, maybe. But what have you all done to kind of cope with this pandemic period? Because from my perspective, I do think we've been living in an era of negativity that has been pushed on us from above and the sides, and we've had to try and maintain our positivity through this. I've mentioned my walking, which has certainly helped me through it. But Paul, how have you coped with it?
I think for me, I've maintained that being dictated to by the the smartwatch of making sure I'm still beating you, Craig, in terms of numbers of days I've managed to close my rings on there. So I
You
have
are.
done that every evening, come rain or shine. And my friends laugh at me when I say, "Oh God, it was absolutely pouring down last night. I got the umbrella out the car and off I trudged down the street to make sure I got my steps in." Um, I think trying to encourage people in my team to do that as well, in terms of make sure you are putting that gap in. We've been talking to some people about, have a walk before work, have a walk at lunchtime, particularly at the moment, to get some natural light into your lives,
Mhm.
if you possibly can, as we're in that darkest point of the year. Although the days do start lengthening next week. Um,
Absolutely.
so, look on the positive side for that. And so it's kind of things like that. I've tried where, I am one of those people that might, late in the evening, just check in on what's coming on the email. If I reply to people, I'm trying to remember to put good morning, trying to indicate, actually, I don't need a response that evening. I'm just trying to, you know, clear some of the backlog that I've accumulated for whatever reason. Lots of small things like that. There's a couple of people in the business that I will, drop a message to, because I know that, there's kind of some things that will have impacted where they are this year with, parents dying and things like that. So just trying to do little things along the way, encourage the team to turn their cameras on when they're on the call if they want to. Not been heavy-handed on that, I know some teams have gone all in. Some of the teams are a little bit more reticent. So, it's lots of small things for me. I've never been a working from home person either, really. I kind of did it on a Monday because the commute was horrendous on a Monday. So I got used to doing that. But actually working 2 consecutive days at home was something that I used to find challenging. I'm now more into it. I've been lucky and I've been able to mix going in for, we've done an SAP implementation during all of this. So, I'd spent time at one of the bakeries. I've spent time in head office when we've been doing things. So I think I've been a little bit more lucky than some people that in March got told they wouldn't be going back to the office till it was all over. So I've benefited from effectively being in an industry that can allow that to happen. And we have opened our head office to help people that were struggling. So the sites have not closed, the bakeries rather. Head office we opened, and we've opened it a few days a week through the whole thing, to allow those people that have been either on their own or at home somewhere to go.
Excellent. Some great tips there. And yeah, definitely. And as you say, yes, you will continue to lead the way on the Apple Watch ring closing stakes, where I'm concerned anyway, Paul. And just as we come towards the end, just to finish off with Simon and Lindsey. Simon, from you, how have you coped, and also one top tip for people to stay positive through these times?
Wonderful, yeah. So fantastic to hear Paul's personal journey. The thing we said at the start is everybody's unique. Everybody has a different way of dealing with it. I'd like to touch on a couple of things as well. The first one is I'm like you, Craig. I've been running a lot in the mornings, and I say hello to everybody, and I wave and I say hello. A few years ago now, or 6 years ago, I walked Hadrian's Wall, or I attempted to walk Hadrian's Wall in one go. I only managed 79 miles, which was a little bit sad, and I had to pull out. But I walked non-stop for 37 hours. And during that time, the Hadrian's Wall walk, you say hello to people. So even in the middle of the night, and there were still walkers in the middle of the night, we were saying hello. So it's so important to say that. So I'm with you on that. But yeah, for me, exercise has been really good. The other thing as well is that I've been able to continue running my business. Now, we had a stall, from April through to June, in terms of a lot of the mental health first aid courses that we were running, and it's fantastic to hear Paul mention that they've got some mental health first aiders, and we do have a mental health first aider in our midst, with Mr. Dale there. One of the last physical courses that we managed to do, and we've managed. I totted it up just before I came on. We've run, as an organisation, over 150 wellbeing webinars, workshops, and full-on mental health first aid training. So I've actually sought my comfort, if you like, in being able to pass that message on, that it's okay to not be okay, and there's no health without mental health. So I think that's my positive. My tip. I'm gonna use another quote. I love the quotes. I love the quotes, and I love the stats. So I'm just going to make sure I get it right as well. So please bear with me. The quote I'd like to use is, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing." So Lindsey, keep hula hooping. It's incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Simon. And I was jumping in puddles with my grandson last week, so I was absolutely loving it, I've got to say. And just in closing on that point, Simon, as well, thank you. We've delivered a lot of well-being and positive mental health and stress management webinars through this year, which you have donated your time and given so much positivity to our membership this year. So thank you for all of that. So final points to you, Lindsey, your top tip.
Cool, thank you. So it's interesting you saying there about the first aiders as well, Simon. So it's something SAP committed to this year, and we
Yeah,
got 12 people trained before the lockdown. They'd committed to 50, and they were thinking, how will they do that? They've just achieved it. So we've now got
awesome.
50 across the business, and it's again opened up another community. I think in terms of like tips and what I've been doing, so yeah, hula hooping's been a big part of it. Fitness has always been, in the last 5 years for me, how I manage stress. I've absolutely experienced when you don't manage stress and the outcome of that.
Yeah,
So whatever that might be, and all of the other pieces. I think my tip would be it's two things actually, if that's all right, Craig. One is generically just go easy on yourself. Whatever you're beating yourself up about, and we all do it. I'm like, well, I'm a few pounds over what I'd normally be because the access to the fridge is a little easier than it has been in the office. I'm much stricter in the office. But go easy on yourself right now. If you spent a bit too much, or you've eaten a bit too much, or just it's fine, whatever it needs to be to kind of get through this. And I think the other piece as well is to know, even when you are seeing all of the positive stuff out there in social media, where whatever platform that might be, and I will admit, I have dabbled with TikTok. It's helped with hula hooping. I do feel massively old, but it can be good fun. But actually, social media can then go the absolute other route. So
completely.
moderating that, and I talk from sort of personal experience on that. So it's a bit of fun. You go, oh, there's a cool video, I've learnt hula hoop, and then before you know it, you've spent an hour scrolling through. It's some like
Yeah,
more sort of depressing type stuff on social media. So I think one is ease up on maybe the use of it, and if you're getting into that real idle scrolling, but also to know that what we put out is the positive stuff. Because a lot of people say to me, wow, all the things that you put online. I'm like, that's the good stuff because I want you to feel good. If I'm telling you the real life stuff, I've just had a complete meltdown and shouted at my husband, as much as that might be amusing, it's not real life. So as I say, two tips really. One is just give yourself a bit of a break, and don't believe all of the hype that you see. Everyone, there's two sides to the story.
brilliant.
And I think there that's hit a great point, and I'll use a quote now, and this can be taken two ways, and I'm going to use it in a fun way, which is don't take yourself too seriously because nobody else does, and
Yes,
just maintain that element of fun in everything you do. But I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you all, and I'm sure we could continue this all day. But we do have to close. And, thank you, Paul, Lindsey, Simon, for your time and input into what I believe is a fascinating discussion. I hope our listeners, once we launch this podcast, will also feel that too. So, for more information on the user group, please visit our website at www.sapusers.org. And thank you to our guests once more. And until the next time, stay well, stay positive, and keep washing your hands. Thank you.